Is your artwork looking a little bland? Like it's missing something? Maybe you just want to add some more things to your artwork to make it look more visually appealing? Well, you've come across the right place. Today, I'm going to be sharing some tips to help make your artwork look bright, eye-catching, and even, hopefully, AI-proof. Keep in mind, I'm no professional, I'm just a self-taught artist that stares at other people's art to try and figure out what they're doing, and pretend like I know what I'm doing as well. If you're new here, I'm Xenon. Welcome to the GRI Bakery. Here I mostly post art tutorials, ďuťál covers, and story times. And hopefully one day I'll also post video essays and such as well. If this video ends up helping you, please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of my summer break. With that out of the way, you're here for the tutorial, aren't you? So let's get into it. Okay, so the first step that I usually like to do to make the character kind of pop is I usually add some basically like handmade filters to the character. So take the layer that you're using for the character, add a new layer on top, clipping, and set to multiply. I basically use any like big brush, I'll just use this one. Take the overall kind of color of your artwork, select this kind of blue right here. Doesn't really matter. I don't think you have to adjust it. Color it over your artwork. Obviously that doesn't look good, so you want to put it at a low opacity. Duplicate that same layer and change the mode to screen. Now again, if it looks a little off, you can adjust some of the layers. I usually like to have the multiply lower and the screen higher. And then if it's an artwork like mine where you basically have two main colors, which is blue and pink, you can adjust it, which I will do. I will go on the multiply layer. I'll just make a pink color here. Use an airbrush so it blends better. And then just kind of color that over where the pink would be. And then do the same with the screen layer. And again, you can just duplicate it if you already did a multiply layer, but I like to make my life hard, so I'm just gonna redo it. Once you have that down, probably my favorite step out of this entire process, add a clipping layer, choose add, and you want to select the character's skin tone, but make it kind of over in this area, so make it dull and dark. Usually I use a red, but because this character here, her name is Emil if anyone cares, has blue skin, I'm going to be using a blue. But I would say if you're using a character with an actual like human skin tone, use a dark and dull red, because that's almost always what I use. No matter if the character has a light skin tone or a dark skin tone, it almost always works. You want to select an airbrush and just color over the skin. It makes it look like the skin's kind of glowing, like she has an amazing skincare routine, and that's kind of what we want. And once you have all that drawn, lower the opacity to where it looks good. Add another layer, clipping, use soft light, and take very vivid colors of things that you want to stick out. So again, for example, the face, I'm going to select a vibrant blue because that's mostly what the face is. And I'm going to airbrush that over the face. And you might also want to do that with other things of interest, like clearly these donuts here. I'm going to add some pink to them. And again, lower the opacity to what you're happy with, and you can always select it on and off to see if you even like what you did. This step is my most favorite step, and sometimes this is all you need to make your artwork look better because it just makes it so much more vibrant. For the second step, we're going to be working on the background, and I already have the layers here from the original artwork, so I think I'm just going to use those because I'm too lazy even for the lazy background. Because I already drew this, I don't want to draw it again. So for the first layer here, I literally just took this background from Ibis, if I can pull it up again. I usually just use this exact background and then I kind of blur it so you can't tell, because it adds a lot more color variety that you don't actually have to draw. And I've had to learn myself that using free assets is not cheating, because almost all artists do that. I don't think I've heard of one artist that draws every single piece of their artwork. There's usually something that's a free asset, or maybe they use like a 3D model for. You gotta learn from the professionals, right? After that, I chose the hue of what the background should be, usually just using a hue layer, which I think, yep, it's all the way down here. And then I added a multiply layer to make it slightly darker. And this I use by going to filter, frame, and I think it was one of these two. I think it was table size, where I just kind of made just some wavy background, but it won't be wavy when you do this filter. You have to go into transform and wave, and then you can adjust it, which I don't know what it's doing right here. That's how I got this. And then make it your desired color. For this, I use a specific brush that I didn't make myself, so I won't be sharing it in this video, but you can probably find some similar brush, or you can substitute this step for one of the brushes that I will provide in this video. But all the brushes that I didn't make, I found on Pinterest, so you guys can just go onto Pinterest and kind of search for these brushes, and you'll probably find them. I just don't feel right redistributing these brushes if I didn't make them, so just go on Pinterest and find them. Next, again, I used a brush that I didn't make myself, but again, you can go on Pinterest and find something similar, but it's really just another one of those like square looking backgrounds. So if you want the same effect, you can just go filter, frame, and table size again, and then maybe add some like blurring effects to it, and maybe use the Ibis cloud brush or something, because that's basically what this looks like. But basically, this step of me just throwing on random stuff is literally just throwing on random stuff to fill up the background more. There's no precise measure to any of it. Seriously, I have said this so much in my streams, in my server, literally anywhere that anybody has asked me for art tips. If it doesn't look good, add glitter. This is what I mean. Just get a bunch of ad layers and just throw stuff on it. It looks good in the end. Right now it doesn't really look that good, but that's because we're not finished yet. You need to add about like 5 more. I forgot to include this part, but sometimes I'll also draw ribbons and other just small objects in the background, which I'll show an example of. So you can also do that as well. I'll also sometimes add like a checkered floor. So it's basically just fill up the background with as much random stuff as you can until it looks good. Next, I added this kind of like paint splatter effect. I added it on multiply to add a bit of contrast to all the glowy stuff going on. Again, brush I got from Pinterest, so I won't be redistributing it in this video. Then I added a blue hue to the bottom, so there's a bit more contrast between the background and the donut, because I realized they were kind of blending into each other. Then I add another ad layer just of all white over the entire background to add, well, some brightness to it. Add some ad to it, right? Yeah. Then I choose an overlay, and I use one of my screen tone brushes, which the QR code for that is right here on the screen if you want to use that. There's 2 versions of them. This is the smaller one, I'm pretty sure, but I just kind of brushed that on areas that look a little too boring, and over this area that's really pink, I added some blue over here. I don't think I added any on the top, but I definitely added some on the bottom here. This is really hard to explain what I did, but I'm pretty sure I duplicated the layer that the character was on, moved it a little to the side and a little bit down to act as a shadow. Then I kind of put some random colors on it. I'm pretty sure it was mostly like blue and pink. Then I added mosaic filter to it. And then finally I put it on vivid light at a slightly lower opacity. But I'm pretty sure if I just change this to normal, yeah, okay, so the layer was just of like cyan, green, and blue, but because it's on vivid light, there's a lot more like contrast to it. I don't know, it's just a cool little effect. I've been doing this recently on a lot more artworks. That's pretty much all I did for the background for this one. Basically, long story short, take literally any image basically, blur it, change the hue of it, and then add a bunch of glitter and sparkles to it. So it looks like you took a lot of effort to draw it, but you actually didn't. And if you look at literally any of my artworks, you can tell I do this every time because I am not bothered enough to draw a full-fledged background, because that's too much work and I'm lazy. Add a new layer, change it to add. I know, so much add. We gotta make things bright. Choose white. This brush I did make, so I will be adding the QR code for this on the screen right now. It's like that light you sometimes see in like those really bright like anime scenes. It's like the hexagons. Basically, just put this wherever your light source is coming from. You might have to play around with it a little bit to get what you're going for, because sometimes they want to spread out a lot, but you don't really want them to spread out a lot. You want them in a somewhat consistent like straight line. And again, lower the opacity to what you're happy with. If you get any like on the face, like in a weird spot, you can just erase it because you just want it around the character to kind of symbolize where the light exactly is going. You don't want too many bright effects on the character's face itself because it might take away from the face. Like if I had like that over the face, it would look really weird. So if you do have that, just kind of erase it, preferably with a softer brush so it's less harsh. Next, we add another add layer. There's kind of like a rainbow reflection light. Choose like a bright red or some sort of like pink, orange, red, something on this side. I think for this I'm going to use pink because there's pink in the artwork. And add this on like the bottom. So my light source is coming from like right here. Add this to like the bottom of the artwork or maybe near some like darker colors because that's where it shows up the most. And again, this works very similar to the other one where you might have to play around with some brush strokes before it looks good. And once you have all of your rainbows in the spot you want them, go to filter, lens blur, and just kind of blur until you're happy with them. These are usually the settings I use. Lower the opacity. And then, again, one of my favorite parts, choose the same color you did for the rainbows, and use this rainbow light and put it around the character's face, or wherever the center of the artwork is. Because then it really, like, draws in the viewer to look at that one spot because there's emphasis on it. And then I use the same settings of lens blur, and then lower the opacity. And this is where the AI proofing comes in. For what I did, I took just like a swirled image. I'm pretty sure it was just with this filter, but I'm not 100% sure. I know I made it through Ibis with one of these like weird like line filters, but I just chose black and white, and then I used transform, and then I used wave, I'm pretty sure, or I use like twirl or ripple. I use one of these three. You can play around with it yourself. And what this does is that it basically adds like too much pixel variation. So if your artwork was to get into like an AI system, it wouldn't be able to tell what the hell was going on. And I basically put this right where the character's face was. If I just put it back on overlay, you can tell I added it right where the nose was. And then I lowered the opacity. It also just adds a really nice effect. So like on places that were a lot more simpler, like the donut, you would very clearly be able to tell that there was some overlay, but it's subtle enough where you have to look. I think it was originally even lower opacity. Then finally, I have this sort of like frame image that I use for a lot of my artworks. I'm pretty sure I've just made it by going to frame divider and then adding a frame. And then I think I just like rounded out the edges and then used some sort of sparkle brush. That's literally what I did. And then I just used text to put the date where I drew it. I usually put the date on my artwork just so I can look back and remember when I finished it, look back at my artwork, be like, wow, I can't believe I was proud of this. This sucks now. So if you want to do something similar, you can, but if you just want to add like a frame and some sparkles, like that works. You don't even have to do this. This is just something I do, kind of like a artwork motif. I put it on add, and I usually put it around like 20 something opacity. Other things I usually tend to do in my artwork is I usually add some sort of saturation layer. Choose a big brush, color that all over the artwork. Set it to saturation and then lower it because I like my artworks bright. So if your artwork still is looking dull, just add a saturation layer and it'll probably look better. And other things when it comes to adding more glitter, if your rendering style doesn't look as like detailed as mine, you can see if you zoom in, you can just see all like the little things. I have two brushes that I usually tend to use. I have a texture brush and then a really tiny sparkle brush, which both will be on screen right now, for adding texture if they still look a little flat. You can tell I do this almost all the time with hair because I don't really know how to render hair that well. So I just add a lot of glitter. You can see here, here. This artwork didn't need any of those touch-ups, but let's just say it did. I'm going to choose the texture brush and kind of add it on places where it just doesn't look full enough. Maybe around the donut. I maybe could have added a little more around the donut here. So I'm just gonna draw that in the corners, maybe on the sides here. Probably should have said this before, but set this to add I know, again, then lower the opacity and you can see a lot more texture on the artwork. Again, this one didn't really need it, so it looks a little too busy right now, but if yours needs it, this is usually what I do. And if you don't want to use this one, or maybe you still need a little more oomph to your artwork, use the tiny sparkle one. I think it's just called Sparkles 1, and just kind of put this all over the art. And again, lower the opacity to what you're happy with. I tend to make the sparkles a little brighter than just the texture layer so you can actually see the sparkles more. And then I basically recommend just using filters if things don't look right. Tone curve, if you have Ibispaint, okay, well that doesn't look good at all. Don't do that. That doesn't look good. I've also heard a lot that tone curve is like just a really good tool to use if your artwork doesn't like look correct, like the colors aren't right. I don't really use it because I draw on my tablet and I don't have my accounts connected on Ibis, so my tablet doesn't have access to tone curve. I only have it here on my computer, so I don't really use it. I just kind of find workarounds like adding 10 different brightness and contrast layers. Your artwork can look neat, but the layers don't have to, okay? If you guys want to see my layer process for this, it's a lot. It's not very nice. So you don't have to worry about your layers looking neat if you need to add like 10 different layers of one thing. No one cares. People just care about the final product. And that is all for this video, wont. Again, if you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any other requests for any other tutorials, please let me know in the comments down below. I've gotten a lot of requests for an eye rendering tutorial, so that is probably what I'll do next. But if you want to see anything else, please let me know. I read every comment left on my video, so if I get enough comments saying something, I'll probably do something about it. Or I won't, I don't know, it depends on how I feel. But thanks for watching to this far in the video. I really hope it helps you guys. Good luck. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, wont.